What if the Alfa Romeo Stelvio was never really about Italian design at all, but about proving that a luxury performance SUV could make you feel something no German rival ever has? That is the question most reviews never ask. They show you the numbers. They walk you through the spec sheet. They compare the boot space and the infotainment rating and call it done. That is not what happens here. This channel exists for one reason: to go past the marketing language, past the press release polish, and past the surface level comparison that fills every other review on this subject. And with the Subi Alfa Romeo Stelvio, going past the surface is exactly where the story gets interesting, because underneath the redesigned body and the updated technology suite, there is a question this car has been carrying since the first Stelvio rolled out of Casino. A question about whether the gap between what Alfa Romeo promises and what they actually deliver has finally been closed. This is not another Stelvio review. This is an examination of what Alfa Romeo decided to finally get right. And before this is over, you will understand why that question matters more than any single specification on the sheet. Picture the first moment you see it. Not in a photograph, not on a screen, in a dimly lit private garage, late in the evening, where the only light comes from a single overhead source, and it hits the bodywork at an angle that reveals everything. That is where the Conde Stelvio earns its first argument. The redesigned front fascia sits lower and wider than you expect. The Trilabo grille no longer announces itself with the awkward height that made earlier generations look like they were straining forward. It settles into the front end with a predatory composure. The look of something that does not need to shout. The hood line rises subtly from the grille and runs back to the windscreen with a tension in it, like a shoulder blade flexing at rest. The sculpted flanks press inward just enough to catch the light along the upper body, while letting the lower body stay visually grounded. And the flush door handles? A detail that sounds minor until you stand beside the car. Give the profile a cleanliness that most vehicles in this segment cannot achieve, because they are still designing for the aesthetic vocabulary of 10 years ago. That is the old paradigm at work: chrome edges, raised door furniture, body panels that prioritize visual complexity over visual intention. The Ford Stelvio has walked away from all of it. What you are looking at is a piece of bodywork that was designed to communicate restraint as a form of confidence, not restraint as timidity. And once you have seen it that way, every other premium SUV in this class starts to look like it is trying too hard. Now, step inside, settle into the driver's seat. Rest your hands on the flat-bottomed steering wheel and take 5 seconds to do nothing except look. That is the experience the interior of the Ford Stelvio is designed to reward. Stillness followed by the gradual recognition that everything within your immediate eyeline was placed there with intention. The semi-aniline leather on the seat surface does not have the processed, slightly synthetic softness that has become the default texture of luxury cabin materials in this segment. It has weight to it. Give it a small amount of time, and it settles under you in a way that synthetic leather alternatives do not. The dashboard architecture keeps the driver's display and the central interface within the natural field of vision, without stacking them or spreading them wide enough to require head movement. The aluminum trim running across the dash is machined, not printed to look machined, not wrapped in film. And the difference is apparent when light moves across it. The stitching on the door panels follows the geometry of the panel itself, rather than running in a pattern that was designed in isolation and applied afterward. These are not details that appear in a comparison chart. They are the details that determine whether a cabin feels assembled or considered. The old paradigm of interior luxury, defined by screen size, glossy piano black surfaces, and a feature count that functions as a proxy for quality, is exactly what you are not sitting inside. And that distinction, quiet as it is where the Ford Stelvio begins to make its most persuasive case. The technology layer in this car was built around a principle that most technology suites actively violate. It was designed to disappear, not to be absent, to disappear. The new central display architecture in the Ford Stelvio processes more information, handles more functions, and connects to more external systems than the previous generation. And none of that is immediately obvious when you use it. The interface responds to input at the speed of intention rather than the speed of processing. The driver assistance systems, lane management, adaptive cruise, the revised emergency response architecture operate in the background of the driving experience rather than announcing themselves at every intervention. The AI-assisted driving modes read the road context and adjust chassis behavior, throttle mapping, and steering weight without prompting the driver to confirm or acknowledge the change. What this means in practice is that the technology does what technology in a driver's car should always do. It serves the experience without competing for attention with it. The old paradigm placed a premium on visibility, on making the driver aware of how many systems were running, how many features were active, how advanced the vehicle was being at any given moment. That paradigm confuses complexity for sophistication. The Hyundai Stelvio understands the difference, and understanding that difference is exactly what allows this car to do what comes next. Press the start button, feel the powertrain settle into readiness, not a dramatic startup event, not a performance for the driveway, just a controlled, confident initialization that tells you something is ready and waiting. Pull onto an empty road at dusk, when the light is low and the tarmac is dry, and there is nothing between you and the horizon except the question of how quickly you want to close the distance. The turbocharged petrol unit in the Veloz configuration does not deliver its power in the linear, predictable curve of an engine tuned for broad market approval. It builds, and then it insists, the mid-range response. The pull available from moderate throttle input in a moving gear is where the character lives. This is not a car that requires a committed downshift and a straight road to remind you what it is. It communicates its nature in the everyday range. The steering does not relay mere mechanical data. It translates road texture, corner load, and surface variation into something that feels closer to conversation than feedback. The chassis, recalibrated for this generation with revised damper tuning and updated anti-roll geometry, absorbs surface disruption without going quiet. It stays alert. It lets you know what is happening beneath the car without translating every imperfection into discomfort. The exhaust note at full throttle is not loud by the standards of dedicated performance machines, but it is specific. It has a character that belongs to this engine rather than a tuned frequency added to mask, a character that was never there. And through all of it, the power delivery, the steering communication, the chassis composure, the cabin remains settled. The performance does not leak into the interior as noise or vibration or urgency. It stays where it belongs, at your fingertips and beneath your feet. The gap between promise and execution, the question planted at the beginning of this video, finds its answer here, in this driving experience, in the specific, irreducible feeling that this car does exactly what it says it will do, and does it with a conviction that the previous generation could only gesture toward. Living with the Sumby Stelvio day after day is where some vehicles reveal the distance between their weekend personality and their weekday reality. This is not one of those vehicles. The rear cabin offers genuine space for adult passengers on longer journeys without the slightly cramped posture that a sportier roofline usually demands as its compromise. The load area handles the practical requirements of weekly life. Luggage for four, the kind of weekly shop that ends up being larger than planned. The bulkier items that a smaller SUV would struggle with, without asking the driver to think laterally about loading. The infotainment system used across a city commute, with navigation active and audio streaming and ambient temperature management all running simultaneously, shows none of the processing hesitation that still appears in some competitors. At this level, fuel economy on the hybrid variant in mixed driving sits within a range that removes fuel cost as a meaningful factor in daily budgeting. And the dealer network, which has historically been the weakest link in the Alfa Romeo ownership argument, has been restructured in key markets to bring service standards closer to the level the vehicle itself warrants. None of this is glamorous, but all of it matters, because a car that only makes its argument on the weekend is not a car you chose. It is a car that chose you on a good day and disappointed you on a Tuesday. The Cardithoin Tuesday, the Stelvio, is not that car. Now think about who actually belongs in this car. Not in demographic terms, not age brackets, income bands, or family configurations. In terms of how you see driving, you are someone who still finds meaning in getting behind the wheel, not as transport, but as engagement. You have looked at every major premium SUV in this segment and found them impressive in their completeness, and somehow still unsatisfying. You have sat in vehicles with larger screens, longer feature lists, and stronger resale projections, and felt nothing in particular. You are not indifferent to practicality. You need the space, the range, the daily usability, but you are not willing to purchase practicality at the cost of character. You have earned the right to drive whatever you want, and you have chosen something that has a point of view rather than something that simply has a price point. You do not choose cars based on the same criteria your colleagues use. You never have. The old paradigm of luxury SUV selection, the one that runs residual value tables, cross-references reliability surveys, and treats badge prestige as a purchasing justification, is not your paradigm. You made that decision a long time ago. The Hyundai Stelvio exists for you specifically, and the fact that you are still watching at this point in the video suggests you already knew that. Step back from the car for a moment, look at it not as a purchase decision, but as a signal. The luxury automotive market is currently separating into two distinct futures. One future is defined by the pursuit of maximum technology output, minimum driver involvement, and the systematic removal of every variable that might introduce character, because character is not scalable and satisfaction scores are. That future is well-funded, well-marketed. And moving quickly, the other future believes something different. It believes that a vehicle can be technically sophisticated and still feel as though it was designed by people who cared about something beyond margin optimization. It believes that the experience of driving matters. Not as a luxury add-on, not as a performance variant for enthusiasts only, but as a fundamental part of what a vehicle is supposed to do. The Alfa Romeo Stelvio is a landmark in that second future, not a perfect vehicle. No vehicle is, but a deliberate and considered statement that the Italian approach to the performance SUV is not converging toward the German standard. It is holding its own line, and the confidence it takes to hold that line in a segment where the safe move is always to close the gap rather than create one is exactly what makes this car worth the attention it demands. The automotive industry is not short of products, it is short of conviction. The Stelvio, in this generation, has it. If this video gave you a perspective you had not considered before, press like and share it with someone who still cares about the right things. Subscribe if you want to keep having this kind of conversation. No hype, no sponsor talking points. Just the vehicles that deserve serious attention. And leave a comment below with your answer to this. Is the Stelvio finally the Italian performance SUV that delivers on everything Alfa Romeo has been promising for a decade, or is this still a car you admire more than you trust? Two sides, pick one.